Hello and good morning. Gary Champion, Psychic Medium. Once again, I've got a story for you. So, if you want to hear a story, sit down, relax. If you don't, move on to something else. This is a story that began when, I guess in the 40s and 50s, maybe 30s. I'm not sure. The guy named Jimmy Duck Holmes, who in 2021 won a Grammy. He's got to be like 80 years old or something. He's an old blues man who I've heard play so out of tune, but it's the blues. It's basic guitar singer blues. 2021 ran a Grammy for Best Traditional Blues Album. That is traditional blues. You sit in front of a building and you play. And Jimmy Duck Holmes owns the Bluefront Cafe in Bentonia, Mississippi. And there's a certain kind of blues that came out of that area of the country. And his album was called Cypress Grove. And he didn't know he was making an album. His manager took him to Nashville to sightsee. And he ended up in a recording studio, and they were waiting for him. That's what they were going to do. They recorded an album of songs that were just guitar and voice. And it won the Best Grammy for Best Traditional Blues Album 2021. Didn't have a chance. How it won, your guess is as good as mine. Comes around, there's a movie on Netflix, I believe, this year called I Am the Blues. I know it's a long story. It doesn't have a flashy ending either. It's slow. There's also another blues guy, Bobby Rush. He's been around with Muddy Waters and those guys way back. And he used to play the Chitlin Circuit. If you don't know what the Chitlin Circuit is, here in the South, unless you know what the Chitlin Circuit is, you're probably never going to hear it again. But my mother used to make chitlin cornbread, which and chitlin is just, I think, a hog gut. I don't think it's the guts of a hog. And they cook them. They take little pieces of that and they put it in cornbread and cook it. I know, disgusting, but delicious. We call it chitlin cornbread. And you could buy it back then. You could get a bucket of chitlins. A lot of places when I was a kid, Mother used to make it. It was traditional Southern cornbread. Anyway, the Chitlin Circuit was where you played and you got fed. It was basically they paid for food. Bobby Rush was one of those among 1,000 other blues players. And in this movie, I Am the Blues, he tells a story to Jimmy Duck Holmes. Let's call it Duck Holmes. I guess ducks, maybe, I don't know, walks like a duck. I don't know what. But he tells a story to him in this movie, and they're sitting in front of Jimmy's building, which is called the Bluefront Cafe, because the color is just painted blue on the front. It's nice and something simple. It's called the Bluefront Cafe or whatever, and it's just blue on the front, and he owns it in Bentonia, Mississippi. And they're just strumming guitars and playing because they know each other, known each other a long time, and they're singing some songs. And I'm a blues. I like the blues. I don't know why. You don't like the blues until you get depressed and lose everything, and then the blues are attractive to you. When you lose everything, I don't know why. The blues, I tell a story about a blues guy in Memphis. I'd been through some really hard times, and I was walking down the street, and I heard a guy playing the harmonica in the blues. And I stopped and listened to him. He didn't want to be heard. He was practicing for something later on that night. And I said, man, that's cool. And so I went in a store and bought a harmonica and came back out, and he showed me a few licks. I don't know the guy's name. But he has a store there in Memphis on Beale Street where he sells CDs and records. I think it says CDs and records or something out there. Black gentleman. And his family works there. And somewhere in the conversation, I found out that he owned that store, that I just went in and bought the harmonica. I bought it in there because it was convenient. Well, every year for years after that, I would go to Memphis. I would go to his store and buy blues harmonica records every year that I went, till I had all of his blues harmonica records. He said, I believe you've got them all. Anyway, back to the story about Bobby Rush. He's telling a story to Jimmy Duck Holmes about playing the Chitlin circuit somewhere up in Illinois. That's the story. And he was playing on a stage, and they closed the curtains on him. They didn't want the white audience to see that it was a black man, or that he was him, or whatever. And they would open the curtains, and he would step forward and take a bow and then go back, and the curtains would close and the band would play. And they didn't like that because the band could be seen. So they put another set of curtains in there where when they opened the curtains for Bobby to come out and take a bow, he was a known name, but he'd come out and take a bow. They didn't see the other band members. Of course, it's a blues band. They were all black. And he was, it's a pretty sad story. He's pretty close to crying. And how humiliating it was to be as good as he was and yet not accepted. And we don't know what that's like as white people. We haven't a clue as to what it is for something like that. Chitlin Circuit, I don't think is around anymore. But he said he used to play and get paid in hamburgers or chitlins. They'd pay him, give him 4 hamburgers, and he'd sell 3 and eat the other one. And that's how he made his living. Strange stories. And he's telling this story, and he's very emotional about it. Duck Holmes, extremely wonderful, bright, knowledgeable human being. When he was telling this story, he said, but they didn't know any better. It was a way of life. He's let us off the hook. He's let us off the hook. He's explaining it in a way that I've never heard any black man ever talk about. They didn't know what they were doing. They didn't know any better. That's what he said. It was a way of life. Then I looked on the internet to find. I was watching this movie. It's a 2 hour and 45-minute movie. And later on, I went on the internet and YouTube and started looking for interviews with Bobby Rush, and it came up, and he retold the story. And said he's so thankful to have lived long enough to see that that's not the case now. That he can go out on the stage, and thankful that he plays to a black and white audience. It's a mixed audience. I don't know if you remember, but they used to put a rope down the middle of the concerts, and black on one side and white on the other. When they started dancing together and the ropes went down, they canceled the concert. That's the way it was done. You had to stay on your side of the rope. Strange, sad times. And he said he's so thankful to have lived beyond that now he plays to a black and white audience. And he's still good. 81 years old, I think. So if you're interested in a movie about the blues, and if you're interested in the blues, it's called I Am the Blues, and I believe it is on Netflix. I'm not sure. And I don't even know what the movie's about. I mean, it must be Bobby Rush because he's in it a lot. Driving around his old beat-up pickup, and then he hangs out in backyards and plays guitar with some other friends. and they go to a big meeting, and there's a lot of lazy Lester. There's a lot of other people there, some old blues singers. And they get together and sing, I guess, at this thing periodically, just to stay in touch with each other. Anyway, when I heard those words from Duck, I thought, I mean, it'd be easy to be angry that you played your best years to a curtain. But Duck was philosophical about it. Might not have been philosophical when it happened, but he's very philosophical now. They didn't know any better. So that's the story. If you hung around to the end, give yourself a round of applause. I was touched by the story, and from a metaphysical standpoint, it makes a lot of sense. The evolution of man is tied inextricably to the evolution of racism. No, it's not as bad as it was. Bobby Rush, he's well liked. He can play any place. Still commands a good audience. But isn't it a shame what they lost? The evolution of man spiritually is tied to it. The two go hand in hand. As we get more evolved, the more we see how stupid these things are. When I was going to high school, I wasn't high school. We moved to that town, I think I was in the 6th grade. It had a movie theater downtown that you could walk to. I don't remember the name of it. I wouldn't say it even if I remembered it. But I must have been in the 7th grade or something, 6th grade, 7th grade. And my brother and I went to the movies there. I think it cost a dime or a quarter or something. It was almost nothing to see a terrible movie. And I heard noise up in the balcony. I said, what is that? I said, well, that's where the black people have to go. I had to ask somebody. My brother didn't know. We didn't know. I said, what is that? Well, the black people have to sit up there. That was early 60s, I guess. And I remember thinking then, what kind of place is this that I've moved to? Felt like an alien there for sure. I didn't understand it. Still don't. But we've evolved in many ways, and yet we still have these pockets of stupidity that are going to cling to that as long as they can till they die. And that's sad too, that they haven't evolved with the rest of us to see that color of man's skin, it's nothing to do with nothing. Isn't it strange? It's a strange, strange world. No fear, no regret, no anger. Thanks for watching.